Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The moment I said, I do, I had no idea I was sealing my fate. Daniel held my hands at the altar, his grip warm, his smile reassuring. I had loved him, or at least I thought I did. But love has a cruel way of blinding you to the warning signs you should have seen. His mother, Eleanor, stood in the front row, her lips pressed together in a thin, knowing smirk. I would later realize that I had just walked into a carefully laid trap. 2 weeks after the wedding, his mother, Eleanor, invited us to dinner, though with her, an invitation was more of a command. The meal was barely served before she made her move. "You should move in with us," she said smoothly, cutting into her steak. "It would be wise. A young couple needs guidance, financial stability, family unity." I stiffened. Daniel and I had already signed a lease for our apartment. "That's kind of you, but—" "Think of your future children, dear," she interrupted, her gaze heavy. "Why waste money on rent when you could invest in your family?" I looked at Daniel, expecting him to refuse. Instead, he nodded, avoiding my eyes. "She's right, Olivia. It's just until we're more financially stable." Just like that, the decision was made for me. At first, Eleanor hid her control under a mask of kindness. But it didn't take long before the rules started. Then the questions turned into commands. Wake up early. A proper wife makes breakfast for her husband. Stop ordering takeout. Cooking at home is more respectable. Don't waste time on that laptop of yours. Focus on supporting Daniel. The worst part, she had already convinced everyone I was unemployed. A lie that Daniel didn't bother correcting. In reality, he had been jobless for over a year, secretly living off the $27,000 I made monthly from my online business. Eleanor knew the truth, yet she spread the lie anyway, reinforcing my supposed dependence. Then came the final betrayal. One afternoon, I received an email from a company I had applied to weeks ago. A prestigious consulting firm offering a lucrative contract. My heart pounded with excitement as I read through the details. I hurried downstairs to find Daniel, but Eleanor was already there, stirring a cup of tea. "Daniel's in the garage," she said without looking up. "What's the rush?" I hesitated, then foolishly decided to share the good news. "I got a job offer," I said, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "A really great one." Eleanor to glance up from her tea with a knowing smirk. "Oh, Olivia," she said, "I already told them you weren't interested." The room spun. "What?" "They reached out last week," she said, voice syrupy sweet. "I let them know you wouldn't be seeking employment." I could barely breathe. "You had no right." "Why would you need a job?" She interrupted coolly. "Daniel provides for you." I trembled with rage. "Daniel doesn't provide for me. I provide for him." For a second, her mask slipped, revealing cold calculation beneath. But then, just as quickly, she composed herself, voice turning sickly sweet again. "You're mistaken, dear. Daniel is the head of this household. You'll learn your place soon enough." That night, I lay awake beside my husband, staring at the ceiling, feeling the walls of my life closing in. I wasn't just married to Daniel. I was trapped, and Eleanor held the key. Eleanor never raised her voice. She didn't have to. Her power was in her whispers, in the way she spun her own version of reality until everyone believed it except me. I had always sensed her control over Daniel, but I underestimated just how deep her manipulations ran. One evening, while reviewing my earnings, I noticed something alarming. Several transactions had been redirected. My funds, which I had always kept in a private account, had been steadily drained. Confused, I traced the transfers. They led to a joint account. An account I never opened. My stomach turned cold. My name was on it, but so was Daniel's, and worse, Eleanor's. Rage burned in my chest. I stormed into the living room, where Eleanor sat calmly, flipping through a magazine. "Where's Daniel?" I demanded. She glanced up, unfazed. "Busy." "I want to talk to him." She smirked. "You can talk to me instead." I threw the printed transaction records onto the table. "You've been stealing from me." She barely blinked. "That money belongs to our family." I clenched my fists. "That money is mine." Eleanor sighed, setting down her magazine. "Olivia, dear, you're young. You don't understand how a marriage works. A husband should manage finances, and as his mother, I'm simply ensuring stability." "You mean ensuring control." She tilted her head, eyes glinting. "Call it what you want. Anger roared through me. You lied to me. You lied to everyone. You told people I don't work, that Daniel provides for me, when he's been unemployed for over a year. Eleanor finally dropped the pretense. And what are you going to do about it? She said, her voice cold. The sheer arrogance in her tone sent a shiver down my spine. At that moment, Daniel walked in. I turned to him, my heart pounding. Daniel, tell me you didn't know about this. His face paled. I just thought. Eleanor cut him off with a sharp glance. We're your family, Olivia. You should be grateful we managed things for you. I felt sick. I am not your puppet, I spat. And I will never let you steal from me again. Her expression darkened. We'll see about that. That night, as I lay awake, I made a decision. I wouldn't just leave. I would expose them. Eleanor's games didn't stop at stealing my money. She wanted me destroyed. Days after our confrontation, I received an email. Your job interview has been canceled as per your relative's request. My blood ran cold. Eleanor had called every company I applied to, ensuring I remained trapped under her control. I stormed into the dining room. You sabotage my job interviews. Eleanor, sipping her tea, didn't even flinch. You don't need a job, dear. A wife should be home, taking care of her husband. Daniel, seated beside her, looked away. You knew, I whispered. He exhaled. Mom said it was for the best. I gritted my teeth. And what else did she convince you to do? Eleanor smirked, sliding a document toward me. My name was on it, but the bank details had changed. My income had been rerouted. If I had signed this, I would have been left with nothing. I met her gaze. You won't win. With a slow inhale, I turned on my heel and walked away. It was time to end this game. I had spent weeks enduring Eleanor's calculated cruelty, but now I had everything I needed. Proof of her fraud, her lies, and her attempts to strip me of everything I owned. The moment she tried to steal my income was the moment she signed her own downfall. That evening, Eleanor arranged one of her insufferable family dinners. The table was set grandly, silverware gleaming under the chandelier's glow. Daniel, as usual, sat at her side like a trained pet. I took my seat, my heart steady, knowing this would be my final night in this house. Eleanor's voice was syrupy as she addressed me. Olivia, dear, now that you understand your place, I assume there will be no more unnecessary rebellion. I smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips. Actually, I'd love to make an announcement. I set my phone on the table, pressing play on a recording. She doesn't need access to her money, Daniel. Once we switch the accounts, she'll have nothing, and she'll be forced to obey. The color drained from Eleanor's face. Around the table, gasps and murmurs erupted. Daniel paled. You recorded. Eleanor's voice faltered. I slid a stack of documents toward her. Forgery, financial fraud, attempted theft, all legally documented. I leaned closer. Do you know what happens when someone reports this? Her hand trembled over her teacup. You wouldn't dare. And she threw the tea in my face. Good thing the tea wasn't hot and didn't burn my face. I stood grabbing my packed bag from behind the chair. Watch me. She lunged forward, rage twisting her features. Before her hands could reach me, I stepped back. You don't get to touch me ever again. With one final glance at Daniel, his mouth gaping, his loyalty shattered, I walked out, this time for good. 2 weeks after my escape, I sipped coffee in my sunlit apartment when the intercom buzzed. I already knew who it was. With a smirk, I pressed the button. Olivia, let us in. Eleanor's voice was shrill, laced with desperation. I made my way downstairs, where she and Daniel stood, disheveled, panicked, and utterly ruined. Eleanor's designer coat was gone, replaced by a worn-out cardigan. Daniel looked like he hadn't slept in days. You need to fix this, she snapped, attempting authority, but it crumbled in her next breath. The bank froze my accounts. The debt collectors. I folded my arms. Oh, that's what happens when you commit fraud. Daniel stepped forward, voice pleading. Olivia, we made a mistake. Just let us in. Let's talk. I laughed. You mean let you in so you can manipulate me again? I signaled to security, and 2 guards stepped out. No, wait. Eleanor shrieked as they grabbed her arms. I raised you like a daughter. I tilted my head. Funny, I seem to recall you treating me like a servant. As security dragged them toward the exit, Eleanor's legs buckled. She collapsed on the pavement, gasping. Daniel knelt beside her, useless as ever. I watched for a moment, then turned on my heel and walked back inside, the door locking behind me. I was finally gloriously free.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.